The college football season is coming to a close, and you know what that means. It is time for the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner to be named. The most prestigious award in all of college football is being announced this Saturday, and with it being so soon, the 4 Heisman finalists have already been announced. Number 1, you have Michael Penix Jr., a real true story about durability and determination. The things this man has gone through, college football committee would eat that right up. I mean, after suffering 2 major knee injuries at Indiana, he needed to transfer and get a fresh start somewhere else. That brought him to Washington, where he's been thriving for the past 2 seasons. In those 2 years, he's thrown for 8,859 yards, 64 touchdowns, and since we're talking about the Heisman, he's also put up fantastic numbers this year alone. Just this year, 4,200 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, and a little over 3 rushing touchdowns to round out those beautiful stats. Now, it is very easy to make a case that he has been the best QB in the country. Unfortunately, this award is just a little more than that. It's not like the NFL MVP. He has got the Huskies to the 2 seed in the college football playoffs. He's also led them to win the Pac-12 championship. He's brought his team more success than he could have ever imagined. And he's had his fair share of Heisman moments this season. Not only has he gone toe-to-toe with former Heisman winner Caleb Williams earlier in the year, but he's also defeated fellow Heisman candidate Bo Nix twice this year. Yes, twice. Speaking of Bo Nix, he is actually among the FBS leaders in numbers of statistical categories. And what I'm saying is, if you look at the stats on a very surface level, Bo Nix is leading or amongst the very top in most of those. And that is really his only case here, because him losing to Washington twice this season really hurts his odds, and a couple of the other candidates do have better numbers than Bo Nix. And honestly, he's nothing more than just another dark horse in this race. If you compare him to the other quarterbacks who were considered finalists for the Heisman this year, he doesn't really stand a chance. And speaking of not standing a chance, we've got our 3rd candidate, Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, Maserati Marv is a finalist for the Heisman, the only non-quarterback in this list this year. He's a wide receiver out of Ohio State, and when I say he doesn't stand a chance, I am specifically talking about Las Vegas odds, because they have him as an absolute long shot to win the Heisman. I do believe there's a chance he could do it. I mean, the numbers he's been putting up his entire career say he definitely does belong as a Heisman winner. Hell, it's not like wide receivers rarely win the Heisman. Okay, maybe they do rarely win it, but Devontae Smith won it very recently, and Devontae Smith had a pretty similar year to what Marvin Harrison Jr. did this season. Sure, it would have helped if the Buckeyes accomplished a little bit more, but he's done what he could, and he's gotten a couple Heisman moments throughout the year, I would argue. One time he caught for 5 passes and 118 yards and a touchdown against Michigan. Okay, those are big numbers against a really good school. He also had another really big game, this time against Penn State, where he caught for 11 passes, 162 yards, and a touchdown. In fact, throughout most of the season, he had phenomenal games just like this. The only thing holding back Marvin Harrison Jr. might be because he's not a quarterback, and one of the quarterbacks put up generational numbers this year. When Devontae Smith won it all those years ago, a lot of things needed to go right. In fact, I mean, it probably helped that Devontae Smith was on Alabama, and Alabama made it to the college football playoffs, something Ohio State was not able to do this year with Marvin Harrison Jr., so that might play a factor into it. But anyway, like I said, one of the quarterbacks in the race has put up generational numbers, and that might get him to win the Heisman altogether. I am talking about the favorite this year, Jayden Daniels out of LSU. I'm pretty sure you knew that though, because his face is all over the thumbnail and title of this video. Now, the case for Jayden Williams is pretty simple and straightforward. If you've watched any LSU games throughout the year, you know this guy can play football at the highest of levels. Hell, let's just take a glance at his numbers here because they are unbelievable. 40 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions in 12 games, by the way. He also threw for nearly 4,000 passing yards, and if that wasn't enough to impress you, he did a ton of work on the ground, because while rushing this season, he ran for over 1,000 yards and had 10 rushing touchdowns. Those are better numbers than some of the best running backs in college football, and this guy threw for 40 passing touchdowns. Don't let that go right by your head. And he did all of this on an LSU team that was not the best. He didn't have the best pieces around him. Hell, his defense wasn't very good, or at least wasn't great, and yet he was still able to accomplish all of this individual success with LSU. I say individual success because the team didn't have the best season. They went 9-3 in a very stacked SEC conference, if I might add, and those 3 losses were against very good schools. But again, if you want to be considered the best of the best, you have to beat those very good schools. They lost to number 5 Florida State, robbed, and they lost to a top 4 team in Alabama. Those were 2 of the team's losses. Any other team in the nation probably drops those 2 games easily. But with Jayden Daniels on the team, LSU was able to put up a fight, a resilient effort against 2 really good schools. Unfortunately, they just weren't able to come away with the victory, at least this time. Anyway, Jayden Daniels looks to move on from LSU this season. He has been in college football for a long time now. He spent most of his college career at Arizona State. Of course, he transferred to a bigger and better school like LSU eventually, and I'm pretty sure he's been in college football for 6 seasons. Don't quote me on this. So it's looking like he is NFL bound. So Brian Kelly is going to need to find another quarterback, and he needs to get LSU to where they were able to get to when they had a good quarterback, a great quarterback like Joe Burrow. Hopefully Brian Kelly is able to find a solid enough replacement to fill the shoes Jayden Daniel is leaving behind, because my God, is that going to be difficult. Now, when it comes down to who's going to win the Heisman this year, it's really only between 2 people, Michael Penix Jr. and Jayden Daniels. On one side, you've got Daniels, who's put up fantastic numbers, far better than what Michael Penix did, but Michael Penix's team had a lot more success than what LSU was able to accomplish. The real question is, did he do enough for LSU so that he can be considered a Heisman winner? I know that some players win the Heisman on teams that didn't have the most success. Shout out Caleb Williams on USC last year. But this circumstance is very different because Michael Penix is his competitor. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would have Michael Penix Jr. win the Heisman. That's what I said in my previous video, centered around Michael Penix Jr. But, you know, Jayden Daniels is the favorite this go around. And honestly, 40 touchdowns is hard to look away from. Hell, extra 10 touchdowns on the ground? Yes, that is very difficult to ignore. It all comes down to what the committee decides is best, you know. LSU did previously have 2 Heisman winners. I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow was one in 2019, and then before that was Billy Cannon all the way in 1959. He was a fantastic running back. Shout out Billy Cannon fans if there are any of you guys left. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I think I've said all I wanted to about Jayden Daniels and whether or not I believe he should be the Heisman winner. I know he is the favorite, so that's about it. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.